Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. If you're having lunch during this hour, consider yourself blessed. According to the Federation of Virginia Food Banks, 1 in 9 Virginians have no idea where their next meal is coming from. They are food insecure, meaning they have no reliable access to enough food. Black and Hispanic households are twice as likely to be food insecure than white households, and about a third of those experiencing food insecurity are children. So how do we feed those who are hungry? Up next on Another View, we talk with 2 people on the front lines of those who are working hard to curb hunger in our community. Another View is next, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Before we get into our conversation today, you know I love telling you about things that are happening in the community, and there's one that is actually happening tonight. If you live in the city of Hampton, listen up. So Allison Moore, who you all know is one of our roundtable pundits here on Another View, she is holding a parent and community interest meeting for the More Laughing Arts and Media Summer Camp. Now, Allison is interested in putting on a free 3-week experience where children will learn communication, STEM, and financial literacy, build media and performance skills, produce real content for the morning show that she has, and perform in a red carpet community showcase. So if you're a parent, grandparent, educator, or simply want to come out and find out more about this event and how you can help and how we can get kids to be involved, come tonight from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Northampton Community Center, 1435 Todd's Lane in Hampton, and come on out, hear what Allison has to say, and get involved. It's a great opportunity for our young people in the area. And next Wednesday, May the 21st at 7 p.m. at the Slover Library, the Friends of Norfolk Public Library present an evening with Michael Threets. And Michael is a librarian, literary ambassador. He was raised in his local library as a homeschool kid. He got his first library card at the age of 5 and was hooked on libraries from there. Now, he says he considers it an honor to be the recipient of the 2023 I Love My Librarian Award from the American Library Association. And he's also been named one of School Library Journal's 2024 Movers and Shakers and one of Time Magazine's 2024 Next Generation Leaders. Now, it is a free event. It's open to the public, but you do have to register. So visit friendsnplva.com. That's friendsnplva.com to reserve your seat. So lots of things happening. That's why Hampton Roads is such a cool place to live. Yes. Absolutely. So every day, people in Hampton Roads across Virginia and throughout the nation go hungry. They are without reliable access to enough food. Children are particularly impacted, oftentimes with others in the household going hungry so the kids can eat. Now, food banks can help, but they are struggling to keep shelves stocked as more and more people need help, and federal grants to purchase foods are being cut. Joining us to talk about the issue and how we as a community can help is Leah Williams-Rumbley, Chief Programs and Innovation Officer for the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. Hey, Leah, how are you?
Hi, Barbara.
Thanks so much for joining me today. And Jay Boone, Food Accessibility Advocate, President of CUSP, which stands for Keeping Us Secure and Prosperous, a nonprofit organization committed to helping disadvantaged communities move from survival to true prosperity. And she also serves as co-chair of the Norfolk Food Policy Council. Hey, Jay, how are you?
Hi, Barbara. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. So, all right, we know that being food insecure, the technical definition is that someone who does not have reliable access to enough food. But I want you to make this real. Tell me what a food insecure person is all about. Leah, let's start with you first.
Sure. So, as defined by the USDA, it's not having enough food to live a healthy, active lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But food insecurity can show up in families in different ways. It could be about not having access to foods that are culturally relevant to you and your family. It could be about living in a neighborhood with a Harris Teeter where you can't afford to shop. It could be about
or any grocery store,
or any grocery store
that you may not be able to
for that matter. Mm-hmm. It could be just about not being able to go out of your neighborhood to reach a grocery store. So there are many, many ways that food insecurity shows up in communities and in families.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Jay? When you come in contact with someone who is food insecure?
Yeah, so I mean, they take on all different forms, shapes, sizes, I think more than anything, like Leah was saying, people don't even understand that they're fully food insecure because by the USDA standards is half a mile. You should have access to food access. So if you don't have that, you essentially are in a food insecurity situation where, if you don't have transportation or money is short, like you don't have those resources in your neighborhood or in your back door. So that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to work on is making sure that those access points are there, but it's taken on a fully different viewpoint of what you might assume, where I think traditionally maybe houseless populations, low income, but we've seen since COVID especially that, one paycheck could substantially change the way that a family is able to, get food for their family. So, people are making it meet wherever they can, but anyone is susceptible to falling into the parameter of being food insecure.
And when we say access to food, I mean, if you're in a food desert, but there's a convenience store on the corner that where you can go and get something to eat, is that food? Or is there a different definition of what is considered food in terms of a healthy lifestyle and so forth?
That's an interesting comment, Barbara, because one of the things that we've been looking at across the Feeding America Network is how we frame discussions around food insecurity. And so there's been more and more discussion around nutrition security. And so that's the thing that's typically not accessible through a convenience store, is a nutritious option, an option that you can take home and create a meal that will sustain your body. And so that's something that's an interesting comment that you brought up. So more and more people are talking about that.
Well, and Jay, I mean, because you could eat, I don't know, junk food, potato chips, whatever, and feel full,
right?
But that's not nutritious.
Yes, it's not nutritious. It's not going to sustain you, like Leah says. It's not going to put a dent in anything. When you think about, I can give you a bag of chips. That's great. But if within 10 minutes, an hour, you're going to be hungry again, is that really helping you? Is it feeding you? Food kind of is we follow Maslow's hierarchy. It's the basis point of all the, needs for human and to be the best human form that you can be. But even more so, food, is the starting point for mental health. It's for, overall body health. It's for all of those points when it comes to, what it is to be a self-sufficient human being. And so if you aren't taking in nutritious food, if you don't have access to it, if you're just taking in whatever nutrients and calories that you can, are you getting the best brain strength out of you? Is your body giving back what it needs to? Are you going to be able to do great at work, at school, be good in the community. And I think one of the biggest things and why we really got into it is realizing that, when we're talking in community issues, we can address any community issues we have going on. But if people are hungry, like that's the first thing that needs to be addressed, because everything can kind of go south from there. So if I don't know where my next meal is coming, I'm liable to do anything to make sure that I have food coming to me and my family.
So how have the federal cuts to the USDA or through the USDA and other programs that used to be available that have been clawed back at this point, how is that impacting how you're able to help people to get nutritious food? I'll start with you, Leah.
Sure. So in Virginia, the impact has been pretty substantial. The USDA revoked a total of $10.5 million in funding for American farmers and for food access programs through the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which we call TFAP, and also through the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, which we refer to as LFPA. And so on average, we've seen an increase in our visits to pantries of about 30% since 2023. And so food
So
banks,
that's been since 2023. So that's even
Right.
beyond what with the layoffs and so forth that have been happening on the federal level.
Absolutely. And it's probably worth saying too that food insecurity doesn't have a face, right? There are people earning living wages, right? They might be earning 6-figure wages that still show up in our lines because they have parents that are living with them whose medications cost $10,000 a month. So it can present in different ways, but the TFAP food that was revoked accounts for about 20 to 30% of the food that's distributed through Virginia food banks, ours included. And so more than 400 pantries across our network access that food. And the food that was canceled specifically was the food that's most nutritious and hardest to obtain and affordable, which was produce and protein. What was not canceled were the shelf-stable commodities that come in the box.
Okay, so fresh food basically
Yes.
is what was curbed. Can you give us a little sense for those who may not know, kind of what's the flow? And so, in other words, you go out, you purchase, it goes to a warehouse. The distribution happens. I mean, tell us how that all comes together.
Sure. Yeah. So our distribution model, contrary to popular belief, the food bank does purchase a lot of food. Our purchase budget pre-COVID was about $1 million a year for food. Today, it stands at over $6 million. We still get a lot of donated food from large retail donors. And then the smallest piece of that pie is USDA commodities. And so all of that food typically comes into our warehouse first, and then it goes to a partner agency. So we have over 200 in our network.
And those would be like church
Churches,
pantries, that kind of thing.
Community
Okay.
centers, exactly right. What we've also started to do, though, is reduce waste and increase efficiency. So we engage in food rescue. And so some of our larger partners that serve a lot of neighbors rescue food directly from the large retail donors. So they have their trucks, they have their refrigerated campers, and they're able to skip coming to us and get the food right out to the families.
Okay, get it there.
Yes. So we're glad to be a GREB partner of the food bank, CUSP is, and with us, we kind of operate in a different capacity than a lot of the other organizations. So that's why we're so honored to actually have them understand our vision. But basically, we do like low overhead for us. We do a lot of our distributions and collaborations in the community, direct access. So like she was saying, we go to retail rescue spots. I just picked up from Food Line this morning, going to pick up from Aldi's this afternoon. But we distribute straight to community.
And the foods that you're picking up from those places, they are things that are about to expire, or are they leftovers? I mean, how does a major supermarket make a decision as to what you're going to get and how that happens?
So when it comes to, I think from the business standpoint of the grocery stores, everything has not only just a, what you eat by date kind of thing. It's also a sell by date, which means that it may not look at their peak of what you want it to look like. And so at that point, they just decide to off-put it. Does not mean that the food is not good. You actually still have a couple days, if not more, on the produce, on the things that they're giving you. And a lot of times they even put it into the refrigerator or freeze those things. So then they have a longer longevity. Longevity to that. We get kind of a plethora of things. We can get meats, we can get breads, we can get desserts as well sometimes, but we do also get some produce, also shelf stable items and, milk, eggs, things like that people really do need. So it's a balance act. We try to kind of think outside the box, make sure we're getting those things, because they are available. We want to get people out food, but we also get fresh produce from the food bank or from our gardens, and we also put it in there as well to just kind of give like a holistic approach. We never want to say that someone can't have cake on their birthday, but we want to make sure that people have a full spectrum of things available for them to make healthy decisions for themselves and their families.
How much is it also, so you give them people food, but do they know what to do with it? I mean, because especially if you are living in a situation where you're used to, just grabbing something and popping it in your mouth as opposed to cooking,
right.
Is that something that you provide also?
Yeah, so we try to take the holistic approach with that as well. So when we first started in 2020, we were doing mainly just distribution. We're trying to get the food out into the communities. And then from building our networks, from having the relationship with the food bank and seeing the real, issues with not having the car going. Like, we have all these great wills. How can we be the axle for that? It's realizing that we don't want to just distribute. We want to also make sure that we're, we have urban farming, we have agriculture, that we're, growing the food, showing people how to grow the food for themselves if they like as well, but also how to utilize the food. So we do plant-based cooking demonstrations with the community. We focus on seniors, we focus on families, people that want to learn not only plant-based but also sustainable zero waste practices, to just get the most out of their food that they're getting, whether it's at food banks, whether it's growing it, whether at the grocery stores. A lot of times in our communities we talk about having the economics go around at least 3 times or more. And so I'm trying to have that kind of aspect when you have a produce item. Like, can you not only cook with it, can you compost with it, can you, scraps, can you preserve it? Like, how can you make the most out of what you're getting to make the ends meet overall? And so we just try to, like you said, holistically look at it, because it's not just about having the access, like you're saying. It's not just about growing it, because we can grow things and people just don't know how to use those things. But we show them as well and give them access. We link with, organizations like Support and Feed, which is out of California, but they come from an environmental standpoint and supply us with plant-based chefs, localized, that are in there on the community, so people are aware of people that are out there making these things. Feast Virginia is also nutrition education with that as well, and focusing on seniors and educating them, and then we just do it out of our our sites, or at Berkeley Community Center, Southside Boys and Girls Club, Ready Academy, with the kids, getting them familiar with growing their own food. It's nothing like them going out and picking out a carrot and like really being excited to eat it, or we had broccoli in our gardens last year, collard greens and things like that, and they're just excited to eat it and try it and take it home to their families. And so just holistically hitting the marks generationally, because I think that's also a big thing. I was raised in a military family. My grandparents helped raise me, and so it's nothing for you to tell my mom how to cook for me, but she's, my grandparents are watching me. We have to teach the grandparents as well. We may even have to teach the kids. As a latchkey kid, you might be preparing some meals at home by yourself. How can you do it effectively without, burn down the house or whatever? How can you do that too?
How do the kids, let's talk about the kids for a minute, because when you see kids coming, do they tell you how they're feeling if they're hungry?
Yes, absolutely. We used to have kids cafes. Our child nutrition programs are the backpack program now. So our relationships with the schools through the backpack program, and then we also have a program called Nourishing Our Neighbors. The children do talk to their teachers. The teachers, the folks who see them the most, right, are able to sort of glean from their behaviors whether or not they could use some additional supplements. And so that's how they determine who will get the backpacks, for example. At Nourishing Our Neighbors, though, families are offered the opportunity to come willingly and pick up a produce box or shop on our mobile market or things like that. And so we typically get feedback because we survey these families, and that's how we know who it's been beneficial to and whether the children have liked it. And so they give us a lot of feedback, especially what's in the backpack too.
So, in doing the research, it says that in Virginia, Black and brown families are twice as likely as white families to be food insecure. Yes. How come?
I think it's obviously resources. You can always say socioeconomics. You can go all the way back to redlining. You can talk about all these different things. I think also it's the community understanding, the collaboration. I think communities, and I've seen it where, people come into the community, they say they have all intensive purposes, they're checking boxes, but the community needs that consistency. They need that sustainability actual plan, and so over the years, if that sort of falls through, then that is not it's not an access point for them anymore. They kind of will figure out another way or another route to survive. And so it's about, I feel like centralizing the support so that it is community organizations that are familiar with the communities they're serving. The communities know them. They're comfortable.
Trust.
Trust overall.
Trust.
And just kind of breaking down those barriers. I think has been mentioned before that, there is a lot of, stigma around needing resources, even if it comes to food access. That's the one commodity that every human being has to have. But for some reason, it's still a stigma point that if, you're constantly in need of that in a sense, but then also if you are just put into that position because, like you said, medications or, just checks or whatever happens that you just don't have the access anymore, and now you have a stigma and feel that you can't do that, you're less likely. And so I want to make sure that me personally, professionally, that is not a conversation that has to be had. Like when you go to our website, it's have you eaten today? That's the blankets.
The bottom line.
That's it. Like if you have not, then eat.
And it doesn't matter where you come from.
Yes.
You just want people to be able to eat.
Yes.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. While we have two wonderful people here on our show, I also want to hear from others who provide food so that people will know where they need to go in order to get help. So if you have a food bank, a food pantry, if you're serving meals, if you are trying to help within your community, give us a call. Let us know what's going on. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. We got a question from Facebook. Lynn in Chesapeake wants to know, what types of food are you most in need of? Leah.
If you go to our website, foodbankonline.org, we have a shopping list under the tab that says how to help, and it tells you precisely what kinds of foods are needed. Primarily, we just encourage folks to give us things that we can still use, so it's important that those items are not opened. It's important that the safety seals are still intact. It's also important that if you're donating baby food, it cannot have past the use by or expiration date at all. Other foods have about a year beyond the use by date that they
these are canned goods, that
correct.
Kind of thing, right? Dry goods.
Correct.
Okay.
So go to the website and it'll give you a specific shopping list of the things that are most needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about?
For us, we do a lot. Like I said, we do a lot of distribution to the community fridges and pantries that are out there. So it's very similar to what Leah was saying about getting the food out. And that's just about having 24/7 access to food. Again, with the stigma of food access, with pantries, sometimes people don't feel comfortable going to certain places. They don't have transportation.
Yeah, transportation is a big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And then it's just the willingness to be able to, do that and put yourself out there in that position. So, we're trying to, obviously, we work at HRT, work with the city, try to figure out those things. But in the meantime, how can we just increase the access points and the hours of availability to these communities?
Speaking of the hours, because I found that really interesting kind of as I was looking at various programs that are out there. And some people have once a week, some have once a month, some have only, 2 hours on. I mean, if you don't hit it at the right time, so what do you do if you're just hungry one night and it's not open or
Right.
you don't know where to turn?
Well, I will say too, so to donate, you go to How to Help, but on our website, foodbankonline.org, you can go to Get Help. And if you enter your zip code, you will get a list of the pantries and direct distribution sites by your zip code closest to you first. And if you go through that list, what you will find, what anybody will find is you can eat every day. You can get groceries from somewhere every single day, probably twice a day if you're scrutinizing the list closely enough.
So if you're getting food, is it for a day? Is it for a week, a month? I mean, how much food do you get when you go to these places? I'll start with you, Jay.
It just depends on the pantry site and how they operate. Some distribute already prepackaged boxes. Some let you just free form shop, and it kind of depends on your family size and things like that. I know like the community hubs tend to do once a week. You can come in there and get things, as well as us when we're distributing. Usually it's like once a week. If we're at events, it could be bi-weekly that we're at a site. So it really just depends on where you're going, and so that's why like having the directory that the food bank has is great. Looking at where the community fridges are as well to kind of facilitate that, because if you're not able to get across town or wherever the case may be, but there are access points, and I say to anyone, like, go ahead and know them now. Even if you don't need them, go ahead and realize where the resources are, kind of form your head around it, because if you ever are in need or your neighbor is in need, you have that information to provide them.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about food insecurity in Hampton Roads and beyond with Leah Williams-Rumbley, Chief Programs and Innovation Officer for the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore, and Jay Boone, Food Accessibility Advocate, President of CUSP, meaning Keeping Us Safe, Secure, and Prosperous, a nonprofit organization committed to helping disadvantaged communities move from survival to true prosperity. And she also serves on the Norfolk Food Policy Council. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Bev Sell, a very good friend of Another View, is on the line from Norfolk. Hi, Bev.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing?
If it's about food, I'm here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's your comment?
I wanted to see if Jay could tell us about the Nutrition Equity Fund that grew out of the Norfolk Mayor's Commission on Social Equity and Economic Opportunity that you, Barbara, moderated back in 2022. And health and food insecurity, as you well remember, was part of that commission.
Absolutely.
So where are we with the Norfolk Food Policy Council? Because this actually grew out of that commission, the Norfolk Food Policy Council.
Thank you, Bev. Well, I'll let Jay answer.
Thank you, Bev. Hi. The Norfolk Food Policy Council came together in 2022. The citizens were asking for more access point, more food access, sustainability. And so a group of 40 plus individuals from Norfolk came together and with the Nutrition Equity Fund tried to figure out a plan for those funds. It's been a process. We've been, figuring out a plan. We have one for supporting the local cities' green infrastructure plan, their, plan for nutritional education, for eliminating food insecurity. And so we're happy to say that, we're moving forward in that. And Bev, I got news today that we are going to be on the budget for the next 3 years with our fund. So we'll be able to move forward with that, to be able to have many grants to help support the sustainability of food and impact in the communities.
Okay. Thank you, Bev, for the call. We appreciate it. Leah, the food bank serves Eastern Shore as well as South Hampton Roads. Do you notice any difference between the cities or the municipalities in terms of the need?
Oh, absolutely. So Southampton Roads is the most urban part of our service area, but Southampton County and Franklin and Isle of Wight, and then also all of the Eastern Shore are very rural. And so the needs are very different. Transportation is absolutely the biggest barrier there. But there are also housing issues and all sorts of things that contribute that make it sort of exacerbate food insecurity, because then people don't have places to store their food. So shopping for food is not what they need. They need the food for a day. And so, yeah, we have to take varying approaches. We have to also look at how we bring food to people. That's why we have a branch on the Eastern Shore. That's why we have a branch in Franklin, so that folks in those rural communities don't have to come all the way to Norfolk or one of the cities in Maine, Southampton Roads area to access food. So, yeah, it's been challenging to some degree, but thankfully, we have staff and team members that are from those communities, so they know the people and they know how to address the issues.
That seems to be a recurring theme also, is the people on the ground being from the community, knowing the community. The trust factor is a huge part of that, isn't it?
I feel like oftentimes, we want to bring in outside people to show us the way, but ultimately we have a lot of strength and power and collaboration efforts like within our grasp here. And so by us focusing on that, everyone focusing on their zone of genius, bringing it to the plate, I feel like we're able to really offer that support a lot more effectively than outside
people coming in. Okay. Let's talk to Susan in Virginia Beach. Hi, Susan. You're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much. I love your show, Barbara.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to ask the guest to talk about what a food shed is. And then my question is, how does the food bank work with local farmers, for example, in Franklin, Pungo, and the Eastern Shore, the small family farmer? Thank you so much.
Susan, before you go, can you explain what you mean by food shed to make sure that we're on target?
Well, it's a concept of the map of all the interrelated food producers, food deliverers, medical facilities, everybody that has an interest in food and nutrition.
Okay.
And we must have a gigantic food shed here.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Right.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I haven't heard that exact phrasing, but it's very similar to what the Norfolk Food Policy Council is working on. We're trying to build a food sovereign Norfolk. So within that is looking at the food system and figuring out all the pieces of it and how we can play a part. So oftentimes we're just consumers in it. We have some grocery stores, we have Palmer's Supermarket, and otherwise there might be more localized. But essentially those are the two stopping points. So how can we boost it into where we have organizations like CUS or Teams with a Purpose that have urban agriculture installations providing food, or other community gardens going that. How can we have churches that may have vans to distribute and help us get food and produce from rural farmers and bringing it in for farmers markets? How can we build co-ops in the community so that people can not only shop at their doorstep, but also be small business owners and have an economic infrastructure there. So we're looking at all the pieces of the food system and how can we holistically fill all of those roles locally without having to go outside of that. We have so much power within just Norfolk, but within the surrounding Hampton roads as well to support this infrastructure work. And so that's much of what we do on that policy council.
Council. Okay. Leah.
So to answer the other part of the question, working with farmers. So the part of the local food purchase assistance program that was left intact, Virginia food banks receive funding to source food that source and distribute foods that come from 65 local growers. And so I don't know the specific names of all 65 of those growers, but it's typically sourced and distributed by 4P Foods. And so what we do is that funding is, it was sort of a budget neutral solution in Virginia that took the administrative burden off of farmers. It goes through the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and farmers are paid to harvest, package, and transport crops that they weren't able to sell or would otherwise go unused directly to food banks so we can get them onto the tables of families who need it.
Okay, Susan, thanks so much for the call. We really appreciate it. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. If you are a provider of food in the community, give us a call. Let us know where you are, anywhere within Hampton Roads, because the food insecurity is statewide. So we want to hear from everyone. Ed from Sedley joins us. Hi, Ed. You're on the air.
Yes. I work at a regional dump, and as a matter of fact, many regional dumps that I go to watch people putting stuff in the trash, and I see food thrown away constantly, especially at larger areas, and they throw canned goods away, and I see packages coming from churches and the food bank. And the stores that have the boxes, and I see food thrown away every single time I'm at work, and it disturbs me. People say, "Don't you want this?" And I have no capacity for it because I live alone, and it's ridiculous all the stuff that is thrown away after it should have been distributed and used. And it's just dumped into the refuse containers, and it's gone.
So your question is, how can we be more conservative about our food usage? Ed, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, I will start by saying one thing we know is that America should not have a food insecurity problem. This country wastes more food than probably any other country. And if we didn't waste that food, no one here would go hungry. But I will say, and I can only speak for the food bank, we are very efficient, but we do have a 5-point quality assurance process. And so food has to be fit for consumption by someone in order for us to distribute it. So if a can comes in and it's not labeled, for example, we don't even know what's in it. There's nothing we can do with it. Also, if it comes in severely dented, we have to worry about botulism. Another thing we see sometimes is people give us things that have been opened and partially used. We're not able to distribute that. So what we bring to the food bank is just as important as what goes out. It actually informs what can go out. So the quality of the food that comes in informs what can actually go out to folks. So I'm sorry that you have to see that. It certainly gives me a pain to know that that's happening.
Yes.
Absolutely. You want to respond, Jay?
Yeah. So on our end, we're getting food in. We're kind of having to do the same checkpoints, get rid of things that might be bad, things like that. But
if we're even talking about dignity, why would you give someone food that is not palatable, is not safe to eat?
Yeah. And so this is a big conversation, I think, in the nonprofit world, right? Okay. I think there's been a shift, or starting to be a shift, and should be a shift from just charity, right? So charity is, you're hungry, here, I'm giving you something. It's very much the mindset of like, think about after Katrina when they were getting shipments of skis and winter jackets. It's like, that's not what we need. Like, they're like, we have it here, you need clothes, And so it's that kind of mentality versus a mutual aid mentality where it's like, here, this, what do you need? And thinking about nutrition, thinking about holistically, like culturally relevant food, right? Not just giving someone just because this is what I have, I'm giving it to, but thinking about the person that you're giving it to and like their impact from, having those things. So it's a holistic approach, but it's also a more human approach when you're thinking about that. It's more community approach. And so that's one of those things. And so it hurts my heart as well when things are thrown away, but I also think we have to make sure, obviously, that our people are safe, that we're not giving them anything that you wouldn't want to eat yourself. And then for us with like produce and things like that, we compost our stuff. We try to keep our scraps as best that we can to also put it into our gardening. So we try to think about ways like that. We actually do have a From Root to Recipe cooking sustainability class tomorrow evening in partnership with the the Norfolk alumni chapter of the Delta Sigma sorority.
Where is that?
It's actually going to be a virtual event. So anyone can sign up for it and register, and you'll get the recipe where you can go and get your goods for that. But you can watch it, learn. We have Chef Ebony who's going to be teaching like a stir fry, but I'm going to be teaching more sustainability practices, zero waste practices, how to utilize the things that you're cooking with to now create your own plants, produce, and also, garden and compost with.
Jay, let me ask you a question. How empowering is that for someone who is probably already feeling a little bad that they are in this situation? I mean, it could be through no fault of their own whatsoever. I mean, in terms of it could be a job loss or whatever has put them in this food insecure space. So the ability to be able to grow, cook their own and so forth, how empowering is that for them as an individual? As you talked about that scale of, your basics and then you move up and higher.
I think the biggest things that I've learned is one that just because you're a woman doesn't mean you like to cook. Just because you're a singer doesn't know that you know how to eat. You know what I mean? It's like all kind of taking away all of those filters and things that people think are what it is, and just letting people know you're fine to be human. It's okay. This is your starting point, and how are you going to get you to where you want to be and where you need to be, right? And so it is impactful. It is powerful. I know with working with seniors, there's certain vegetables they don't like, whatever, but they also have a knowledge point of being from rural communities. They understand how to do it, and for them to have the power and showing them not only just how to grow, but a plan, right? So if there's a group of 8 seniors or people in the community together, okay, each of you guys take a crop. Okay, each of how can we do it? Because sometimes people just can't wrap their head around where they can start at, what they can do, and sometimes we focus so hardly on what I can't do or where I'm at and what I'm deficient in. It's no, you have so much power, so many capabilities within you, and here, let me just show you and list out to you where you are and what I see in you. And I think sometimes that's empowering for someone to hear from them, no, I see you're amazing at this. I see your eyes light up when you talk about this. I see you have experience in this. This is great. And showing them where the value is in that, and then giving them the skill sets and the access points to do that, and just letting people enter where they want to, right? There's some people that just don't have a grasp of it. They don't want to do it cool. But sometimes they just want to sit, and they can sit and help someone else do something, and they want to be in part of the community, and that's great. So everyone has a part to play. And I think right now, especially as we get more into the community, as we see rights and things start changing and funding not coming in, it's going to take all of us to realize where we can fit in, and just realize that you have a choice in the matter, and you not choosing something is your right, but it also is a choice, right? And so we can figure out where you can come into play and where you can fit into this.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call. I cannot believe that all those food pantries, maybe they're just busy distributing food and that's why they haven't called us. But Elena joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Elena. You're on the air.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking my call. This is a fabulous program. First, I wanted to thank everyone who is in the business of providing for those who are food insecure. And I'm delighted to have heard that you've already brought up issues of justice and compassion and generosity. I wanted to add the idea of respect and choice. And as someone mentioned before, not because you're poor should you take whatever is available. There are issues of food allergies and dietary restrictions, and the persons I know who work in this area of providing, they adhere to that very strongly. There are some who I have witnessed criticize them. Well, they should take this peanut butter when they're allergic. Pork and beans when they have religious restrictions, or hot dogs as a protein with mixed meats. So I want to thank you for the program. Thank you for what you're doing. And I particularly want to give a shout out to everyone who works with food insecurity. My friend Marcia, my friend Ercel, and so many more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena, for the call. She brings up a very good point about choice and dignity.
She does. And I'm very pleased to say that at all of the food bank's direct distribution food hubs, we is a client choice. experience. So you go in, it's like a mini grocery store. You shop for the things that are right for you and your family. Our largest partners also follow that model. And so folks are able to come in and shop for the things that are culturally responsive to them, are right for their diets, are right for their the health outcomes that they may be trying to achieve. And we even have support for those things, right? So here are some foods you should choose if if you have diabetes, and we rank our foods. So we have green foods that you should choose often, and we have yellow foods that you should choose sometimes. And we're in the process of eliminating all red foods that you should choose rarely. And so those won't typically be a big option, but right now they're only about 5% of the options. And then there's some things that just aren't ranked, because like an apple is not ranked because it has natural sugar, but it's healthy. So so we appreciate that, and we respect client choice and a dignified approach to distribution. We think everybody should have a right to choose the things that are right for themselves and for their families.
So I was reading the website for the Federation of Food Banks in Virginia, and they were talking about the pharmacy banks.
Yes.
Do we have that in this area? This is where basically you go to your doctor, you have diabetes, you can go shopping right there at the doctor's office.
We do.
Or close. Do we?
So we have a statewide movement called Boundless Collaboration. It's the Health Equity Work Group, and we do what's called Food is Medicine. And so we have a partnership with Centera, and we have a community food hub that is situated directly next door to a Centera community health clinic. Ours is in the Berkeley community, but there's one in Newport News as well, right on Chestnut Avenue. And so the idea is that you go into the clinic, and the clinic may refer you next door to the food hub to get the items that you need. And when you come in, you can see the signs about, here are the things you should choose if you want to lower your A1C. Here's what you should choose if you have hypertension. Here's what you should choose. So all of those things are available.
I want to go back to the children for just a second. But first, it was a question from Kevin in Norfolk. He said, are there still programs in place to make sure children are fed during the summer months when school is out? For example, there used to be a kids cafe, and of course the backpack program. Will federal funding cuts impact those things? That's my first question. And then secondly, if a child gets the backpack, does that become a stigma to the child? In other words, do the other kids know that on Friday, little Johnny's going home and he's got a backpack, when the other kids have finished their homework and they don't have one? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It depends on the school.
Okay.
So we're inclined to say that it doesn't, because usually what happens is the teacher will decide and slip it into the child's backpack.
So it's not a separate thing that they get, or a paper bag or something that would indicate that there's food. That's
not
what it
anymore. It does come packaged in a clear package, but where they would have it slipped into the bag, like other students wouldn't necessarily be privy to that process.
Got you.
The Kids Cafe programs are now run by direct providers. So like the Boys and Girls Clubs would run their own. Salvation Army runs their own. Same thing with summer feeding. The backpack program is not active during the summer because school is out. But there is a program that we were able to achieve by way of legislation, and that's Sunbucks. So it's basically SNAP for children. It's EBT for children during the summer months. And so Virginia has it. Now we are worried about the potential SNAP cuts, because that might impact that program. It'll certainly impact the state's share, which could ultimately cause it to be reduced or to go away. But those opportunities are available for children.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so I mean, I would just say it's kind of everything is up in the air right now. I would just, have everyone, if there's programs that are there, I think there's been funding that has been put aside, but most organizations and businesses have a July to June fiscal year. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the kind of stress, I guess, on our end comes in, is just that, right now everything's kind of paid out. It's good, but come July 1st, we kind of have to see where things are going. So that's why the community has to, figure out that sustainability plan. But I think there are going to be enough programs that are out. I think people understand the value of it and the need of it, and that it will be taken care of this summer.
All right, I'm going to try to get one more call in. We only got about 4 minutes left. Tom joins us from Williamsburg. Hi, Tom. Very quickly, because we're almost out of time.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. I enjoy the show very much. I just wanted to make a quick comment on food education. In other words, we spend a lot, calculus, English, history. How many people know how to boil rice and vegetables? In other words, putting the food education back in the school system to give people basic skills with what they have to make do. That was my comment.
Okay. Thanks, Tom, for the call. We appreciate that. All right. Our last couple of minutes. What can people do meaningfully that will help you all, and anything that you have special coming up? So Leah, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So we just want to encourage folks just to look out for what's going on in the community. We have a Sustaining Together Summit, which is a half-day conference that's coming up on September 5th. Dollar Tree is our presenting sponsor. It's going to be held at their headquarters in Chesapeake. So look out for a save the date, but it'll be an opportunity to hear directly from neighbors. So corporations, community partners, organizations can hear directly from neighbors about what they need and what they need in order to access food and live a more self-sustaining life.
Okay. And if people want to donate or whatever, what should they do?
They should go to our website, foodbankonline.org. Or if you already are familiar, we're located at 800 Tidewater Drive in Norfolk. You can just stop by between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. and bring a donation.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, Jay.
Yes. So again, we have our From Root to Recipe Cooking Sustainability virtual cooking class happening May 16th, 6 to 8. And you can register on that. There's a link there. It should be on the website at our website, wearecusp.org. But we also have a Feast Get Growing event. So we're partnering with Feast and Centerwell to teach seniors primarily how to grow their own food, how to grow it for the community. That is going to be on Friday, June 20th. It's from 12:30 to 2:30, my apologies. And so you would just need to contact Anissa at Centerwell. That phone number there is 757-994-9683. And even more so, if you are in the Norfolk area, if you are a resident, someone who works in Norfolk, we would love to have you at our Norfolk Food Policy Council community meeting. That's going to be on June 5th. That's at Richard A. Tucker Library. It's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We would love to share what we have going on, our plans for sustainability around food in Norfolk, and see how you can become a part of our master plan. So thank you.
And there is, if you want to find a lovely article about Miss J. Boone, you can go to whro.org and find out more about her gardens and about equitable sustainability in terms of the environment. Yes. So we really appreciate that. And one thing, that we did not get to, but is very important also, is the opportunities on college campuses that I believe the food bank is helpful in making sure that our college students get a chance to eat. 30 seconds. What can you tell me about
Absolutely.
that?
We partner with college campuses, TCC. We have school pantries there. And what we know is that students who've been accessing those pantries remain enrolled in school, have higher GPAs, and worry less about food and more about graduating.
Thank you, ladies, so much. I really appreciate it. That is Jay Boone with CUSP and Leah Williams-Rumbley with the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore. are. And audience, we hope that today's show has absolutely inspired you to do what you can to help those who are going hungry in our community. Spread the word by encouraging others to listen to this program. You can go to whro.org/anotherview and download the podcast. And you can also find us on Spotify or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, we're going to be speaking truth to power through poetry. We have our favorite Tim Siebels, who will be on with his latest works, and also a new artist by the name of Stephen Leva. There we go. I got it pronounced correctly. He wrote a book called The Other Side of Cruelty. And so we'll talk about that and talk about poetry next week. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. And Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Show some love to others in our community by sharing a meal when you can. And let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.